They used my future to fund his fantasy, then expected me to smile and say thank you. That's the moment I realized I wasn't their daughter. I was just a convenience. A silent backup plan. Someone they could lean on when they needed something, but forget about when it was my turn to dream. Growing up, I was always the quiet one. The helper. The one who stayed behind to clean up after family events, while my younger brother got praised for simply showing up. My parents raised me to be responsible, and I took that seriously. I never talked back, never argued, never even asked for much. If mom needed help cooking, I was already in the kitchen. If dad needed someone to drive him to his appointment, I skipped my weekend plans. But the truth is, I was raised to serve, not to shine. From the age of 16, I worked 2 part-time jobs. One after school, one on weekends. While my friends went shopping or traveled during summer break, I was folding clothes at the mall or restocking shelves in the back of a grocery store. Every dollar I earned, I put away into my college fund. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was the one thing I was building for myself. I used to dream about the day I'd finally walk across that campus lawn with my books in hand, heading to my first class. I had researched colleges quietly at night, circled dates on the calendar, and even bought a second-hand laptop from a neighbor who was upgrading. I wasn't just saving money, I was holding on to hope. And for a while I believed that hope would take me somewhere better. Somewhere I'd finally be seen as more than just the dependable daughter. I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would be proud. Maybe they'd see how hard I worked and cheer me on as I stepped into a new chapter. But that chapter never started. Because the very thing I had saved so carefully for, the fund I had poured my teenage years into, was about to be taken from me. And not for an emergency. Not for something noble. But for a honeymoon. A luxury trip for someone else. My brother. And they didn't even ask. They just did it. I found out 2 days later. I had just come home from work, tired, sweaty, and still wearing my name badge. I walked into the kitchen and saw my mom humming while stirring something on the stove. There was this lightness in her mood, like she was excited about something. I smiled and asked what was going on. She looked at me, still stirring, and said, "Oh, your brother and his wife just landed in Greece. They're staying in that 5-star resort you showed me online months ago. Remember that one?" I blinked, confused. Wait, what? Oh, the honeymoon. It all came together beautifully. She laughed lightly, like this was normal. "We had to dip into your college fund a little bit to cover the flights and hotel, but don't worry, you weren't using it right now anyway." I didn't even feel the floor under my feet anymore. You used my college fund?" She waved it off with a casual smirk. "Sweetheart, you're not in college yet. You're single. No wedding, no kids. Be happy for your brother. This is a special time for him." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. She went back to stirring like nothing happened. Later that evening, my brother came over with his new wife. They were showing off their travel itinerary, flipping through pictures on his phone of the hotel, the champagne they got upon arrival, the beach view from their room. At some point he looked right at me and said, "Hey, thanks for the trip, sis." He laughed. "Didn't know you were saving up for me." His wife giggled next to him. I wanted to scream, cry, throw something, but I just stood there. Then he added, "Relax, you'll get your turn. If you ever find someone, maybe mom and dad will help you too." They all laughed like it was a joke. Like I should be proud that my hard work had funded his fantasy. That night I locked myself in my room. I didn't eat dinner. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there in the dark, staring at the wall, listening to their laughter echo through the hallway like a haunting memory. I had worked so hard for that money. Every dollar was a sacrifice. Every shift, every sore foot, every missed hangout with friends. I had saved through snowstorms, summer heat, final exams, and exhaustion. And just like that, it was gone. No discussion. No warning. Because apparently I was just the backup child. The invisible one. The one who made things easier for everyone else. They had used me. And now they expected me to smile and be happy because it was for family. That night, something shifted inside me. I sat on the edge of my bed with the glow of my empty bank account lighting up the screen in front of me. My hands were cold, but my heart was burning. They thought I would take it quietly. They thought I'd just move on like I always did. But I wasn't the same girl anymore. I wasn't going to stay quiet this time. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of them. I didn't even ask why. I just went quiet. Completely quiet. That night, while they laughed over dinner and shared photos from the honeymoon they paid for with my dreams, I stayed in my room, eyes open, thinking. No one checked on me. No one asked if I was okay. Maybe they thought I was sulking. Maybe they figured I'd get over it. But I wasn't sulking. I was planning. Early the next morning, before the sun was even up, I got dressed and stepped outside. The air was cold, but it felt good on my skin. Clean, sharp, real. I walked to the end of the block, found a quiet corner and called the bank. The man on the phone asked for my details. I gave him everything calmly. Then I said, I need to cancel all automatic payments linked to my account. Starting today. He asked which ones. The rent. The electricity bill. The family phone plan. All of it. He paused. Are you sure? These are active accounts. Yes, I said, my voice steady. I'm sure. He confirmed the cancellations. One by one I heard the clicks. The quiet sound of freedom. I hung up and walked back to the house. Everything looked the same. The porch light was still on, my mom's plants still lined the steps. My dad's car sat in the driveway like it always did. But something in me had changed. I walked straight to my room. No one was awake yet. The house was quiet, peaceful, unaware. I opened my closet and pulled out the suitcase I'd kept under the bed. It still had the tag from our last family trip, the one where I paid for my own plane ticket while my brother's was covered. I packed slowly. Not everything, just the things I needed. Clothes, a few books, my laptop, some old photos that meant something to me. I didn't slam the drawers. I didn't leave a note. I didn't announce my exit like some dramatic movie scene. I simply zipped my bag, looked around one last time and walked out. Nobody saw me go. I got into the cab I had called while packing and didn't look back once. Later that evening I turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear the messages. I didn't want to listen to their excuses or fake concern. Because I knew exactly what would happen next. And honestly, I was looking forward to it. It didn't take long for everything to start falling apart. That same evening I was sitting in my friend's tiny guest room, sipping tea and staring out the window when I got the first message from my mom. Baby, something's wrong, the power's out. The rent's unpaid too. Is something happening? I stared at the message for a long moment, then locked the screen. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel guilt. I felt calm. This was the first time in years they had to feel what it's like when I'm not there fixing everything. 15 minutes later, the second message came. Sweetheart, your dad says the electricity company says the bill was canceled. And the landlord just knocked, says the rent wasn't paid this month. Please call us. I read it, smiled a little and finally replied. Ask your golden child to pay. I'm done. Silence followed. No apology. No confusion. No explanation. Just silence. They knew. They knew I'd had enough. A few hours passed and I put my phone on charge. When I checked it again, I had 6 missed calls from my mother, 2 from my dad, who usually never even called me, and 1 from an unknown number. Then I got a message from my brother's wife. This is unbelievable. We're stuck in Cabo and our hotel says the card bounced. What the hell is going on? I didn't reply. The truth was, I had pulled the plug on everything. All the payments that were being charged to my card without my permission. Every direct debit tied to me. Every dime they'd taken for granted. Apparently, they had maxed out my account while pretending to borrow it for the wedding expenses, and when that same card was charged again for their luxury honeymoon hotel, it was declined. Suddenly, the dream trip wasn't so dreamy anymore. I could picture it in my head, my brother pacing around the hotel lobby blaming his wife, then calling mom in a panic. And her calling me. Except I wasn't picking up. At home things were falling apart quickly. Without electricity, my mom couldn't do her online baking orders. The Wi-Fi was off. Her phone data ran out the next day because their plan was on a group account. My group account. My dad tried to heat up food and realized the stove didn't work. The landlord had started knocking twice a day now, warning them of possible eviction if the rent wasn't paid soon. They had depended on me for everything. Quietly. Secretly. Without ever saying thank you. And now, without warning, their safety net was gone. By day 3, my mom left a voicemail. Her voice sounded different. Soft, a little cracked. Honey, I know you're mad. I know we hurt you. But we're in a bad spot now. Can we please talk? I replayed it once. Then deleted it. What surprised me most wasn't how fast they fell apart. It was how fast they turned on each other. I heard from a cousin 2 days later that my dad had yelled at my mom in front of the neighbors, asking why she didn't tell him I was paying the rent. My mom blamed my brother, saying he promised to reimburse me after the honeymoon. My brother called my friend's number the next night, begging me to fix things because his wife was threatening to fly home early. Even the golden child was sweating now. I didn't answer. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't owe them anything. And I wasn't going to fix what they broke. While all this chaos was happening around my family, my mind drifted back to all the years I had spent being their strong one. It wasn't just about the money or the broken trust this time. It was about a lifetime of being taken for granted. Being the one who did the heavy lifting while everyone else got the glory. I remember the nights I stayed up late, babysitting my little brother while he was off at parties I wasn't invited to. I'd hear the music and laughter through the walls, but I had to sit quietly, making sure he didn't get into trouble. No one thanked me for that. No one even noticed. I remember skipping my high school prom, not because I didn't want to go, but because Mom needed me to stay home and help her clean the house after a long day. I gave up moments that should have been mine. But every time I complained, every time I showed even a little frustration, I was told, "You're stronger. You can handle it." Like strength was something you could just turn on and off. Like my feelings didn't matter. I watched my brother get praise for the smallest things, while I quietly handled the mess behind the scenes. My parents praised him for being the star, the golden child. And I was just the shadow, always there but never in the light. Even when I worked 2 jobs through school, they didn't see the exhaustion in my eyes. They only saw what I could give them. And I gave. And I gave. Until there was nothing left. This betrayal, the empty college fund, the cold words from my mom, the mocking smiles from my brother. They were the final pieces of a puzzle I had been building my whole life. I realized that no matter how much I gave, I was never enough for them. But now, for the first time, I was doing something for myself. I wasn't just walking away from the money. I was walking away from years of being invisible. From years of being used. From years of being told I was stronger, when all I really wanted was to be seen. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about finally standing up and saying, "I'm done." After I cut off all the payments and left the house, I thought they'd just accept it and move on. I expected silence, maybe even relief from their side. But instead, what I got was a flood of calls and messages. Not from them directly, at least not at first, but through relatives and family friends who suddenly became messengers for their guilt. One afternoon, my cousin, someone I barely even spoke to, called me out of nowhere. Her voice was soft and shaky, like she wasn't sure how I'd react. "Hey, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about everything. Mom and Dad, they didn't mean it like that. Maybe you should come home. Things can still be fixed. We miss you." Her words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I sat there, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tell her everything I'd bottled up for years. But instead I kept my voice calm, quieter than usual but steady. Tell them they made their choice. Now they have to live with it. That was the only time I replied to anyone from home. Because after that, the messages started pouring in. Texts, emails, even handwritten letters from my mother and father. All filled with empty apologies and desperate pleas. They sounded like they were trying to fix a vase that had shattered into too many pieces to glue back together. "We never meant to hurt you. Please forgive us. You're our daughter and we love you." But their words felt hollow. Like a broken record stuck on repeat. Every message sounded the same, full of regret but missing the truth. One night, I opened a message from my mom that was longer than usual. Her words were coated with a softness I hadn't heard in years. "We miss you so much. The house is so empty without you here. It's not the same. Please come back." I stared at the screen, my heart aching, but there was something else too. A growing strength inside me that wouldn't let me fall back into the old patterns. I knew she was trying to make me feel guilty, to pull me back under their control. I didn't reply. Instead, I typed one short sentence and then deleted every message from them. "You made your choice. Now live with it." I wanted them to understand that this wasn't a game anymore. This was my life. And I was done being a pawn in their selfish plans. I packed the last of my things and moved into a small apartment with my best friend. She had been my rock through all this. The one person who never judged me or made me feel like I was less than I was. That first night, I stood by the window of my new place, looking out at the quiet street below. It wasn't fancy. There was no grand view or plush furnishings. But it was mine. And for the first time in my life I felt free. Free from the expectations. Free from the endless disappointment. Free from feeling like I had to give and give only to be left with nothing. I enrolled back in college using a scholarship I had won months before. It was something I'd kept quiet from my family because I thought they'd support me, help me celebrate my success. But now I didn't need their approval. I was doing this for myself. I worked part-time again, balancing classes and shifts, but this time it was different. I was working for my own future, not to cover bills for a family that didn't appreciate me. Every day I felt a little stronger. Every day I rebuilt a piece of myself they had tried to break. And with every small victory I moved further away from the pain they caused. The guilt trips, the fake apologies, the desperate attempts to pull me back into their world. None of it worked. Because I had finally found something they never gave me: self-respect. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. And the best part? I was doing it all on my own terms. They can keep their empty apologies and their regret. I have my future. And I'm not looking back. Months passed since I walked out of that house. The place I once called home but had become nothing more than a cage. Life was different now. Harder in some ways, yes, but filled with a new kind of hope I'd never known before. I had started to rebuild everything from scratch, and though the scars from the past still lingered, they didn't control me anymore. One afternoon I was driving through the neighborhood where I grew up. The streets were quieter than I remembered, and the trees that once seemed so tall and protective now looked weathered, just like the memories that clung to them. As I passed by my old home, something caught my eye. The house looked empty. No lights shone through the windows. The lawn was overgrown with weeds, and the once pristine front porch now sagged slightly, worn down by neglect. There was a "For Rent" sign stuck crookedly in the front yard. It felt like I was looking at a ghost, a shell of what used to be. A strange feeling settled over me. I slowed down the car and rolled the window down just a little, catching a faint smell of old wood and dust drifting from the house. My mind wandered back to all those nights I spent there, feeling invisible, feeling like I was just another shadow on the wall. I thought about my brother, that entitled boy who had never really earned anything, but always expected the world to be handed to him. I heard from a neighbor that he'd moved back in with his in-laws, the same ones who had always looked down on me quietly but smiled warmly at him. Apparently, the honeymoon money had run out long ago, and the lavish lifestyle they lived so openly had finally caught up with them. I wondered if he ever felt the sting of real struggle. Maybe he'd finally tasted what it was like to be dependent on others, to be vulnerable. But part of me doubted it. He had always been the kind to avoid responsibility and run away from consequences. As for my parents, rumors trickled in through the grapevine that things weren't going well. Without my rent payments, without my help covering the bills, the financial strain was clear. The house was empty not just because it was up for rent, but because they had lost much more than just a tenant. They lost their safety net. I heard they had to sell off some of their belongings, and the family dinners that used to be loud and full of laughter were now quiet and heavy with regret. And while a small part of me felt a cold satisfaction knowing they were no longer benefiting from my kindness, I was not driven by revenge anymore. I smiled softly to myself as I continued driving down the street. This smile wasn't born from anger or bitterness. It came from a place of closure, of understanding. I realized something important that day, something I wish I had understood much earlier in my life. They taught me that blood is thicker than water. That family ties mean you must always sacrifice, always forgive, and always endure. But what I learned, the hard way, is that peace is thicker than guilt. Peace is the quiet strength that comes from walking away from toxic ties. Peace is knowing you did what was right for you even when it hurt the people you once loved. Peace is waking up each day without the weight of their selfishness pressing down on your heart. I parked a little further down the road and looked back at the house one last time. I thought about the years I had lost, the dreams I had buried, and the pain I had endured. But I also thought about the future. My future, filled with hope, resilience, and freedom. I reached for my phone and sent a text message to my best friend. "Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." That's when I felt it fully. The relief, the lightness, the healing that comes after walking away from something that was never meant to hold you. They might have taken my money, my trust, and my years. But they could never take my spirit. And I was finally free.